Answer all your questions about politics, be they simple or complicated, be they left wing or right wing. Hold on a second, gotta solve a little microphone issue here. Microphone. Welcome, everybody. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jarrett, and I am here to answer all of your questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. So, any question that you might have about politics, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. Everybody's welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. I do not judge, I do not roast, and I do not debate. So, any questions that you have, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. Everybody's welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. There's no debating here, there's no roasting, there's no judging whatsoever. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions about politics. So throw your questions in the chat and we will get to answering them. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics. Nobody's going to judge you or roast you or make fun of you in any way. So throw your questions in the chat and we will get to answering them. This is not a debate show. This is not a show for people yelling at each other and trying to own each other. It is just good faith answers on the substance. One Big John Lovell says, not only is Santa Claus a lie, he will ravage you. Do you have a question, Big John? Ghetto says, when you getting back your country? I mean, hopefully it will happen a little bit by little bit. Hopefully the first big step will be 2026. And then of course, once everybody gets set in early 2027. Babo Baggins says, do you think we're in a recession? I believe that a recession is a very specific metric for it. So it's not like the sort of thing that you can feel out. I think it's like, what is it, like 3 straight months of economic decline or something like that. So yeah, I think if we're not currently in a recession, then we're definitely pre-recession, in my opinion. The Trump administration has done everything they can to make us to put us into a recession. Fletch lives. Good to see you again. So if Trump were smart, he could qualify to be the next devil. Accurate. Alan says, can you NGA? What's NGA? Gary says, Herbert Hoover tried the same things Donald Trump tried. And yeah, he's failing. Alan says, we support Trump if I was NGA instead of, I don't know what you mean by NGA. Keeping the aircraft carrier at sea doesn't really want it to come. Y'all need to clean up your things here. Zionist Demir says, chances Trump keep both houses in November and why? I think the only chance of Trump doing that is cheating and stealing. So there are a lot of ways in which he is going to try to manipulate the election. Whether he's successful is an open question. That is the only way, because America is so pissed off at him and the Republican Party right now that there is going to be massive vote for change. Will it be massive enough to undo anything that he does to try to attempt to rig the election? We have to wait and see, unfortunately. Okay. Zion says, can Trump Jr. run with Trump as VP? Yeah, why not? Alan says, will you support Trump if he was black instead of white? No. Trump is bad in any shade, including his current orange. Matt says, do you support Mamdani? Yeah, Mamdani's dope as hell. Brandon says, thoughts on Trump leaving his staff on Air Force One and taking another plane? Normally, when that happens, you tell the people that they are targets, as opposed to just like, oh boy, sir, yeah, you guys go on that plane, and I swear I'll be right behind you. Like, yeah, it's just more evidence of his selfishness and cowardice. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you. Michael says, Wisconsin fumbled Hong so bad. I don't know. She seemed fine. I don't think that she was like, the next Bernie Sanders or AOC, but I think that Corral is going to do a great job, and everybody should vote for him because he's way better than the Republican option. You really don't want to have a Republican in charge of a swing states election with Donald Trump in the White House. Mark says, does voting matter at this point? Yeah, voting always matters, Mark. And if anybody's trying to tell you that it doesn't matter, then consider how hard the Republican Party is working to try to get you to not vote. All right. Big John says, why does Trump lie about everything? Because he has zero substance. he has zero competency, and so the only way that he can make it seem as though he is good at things is to lie. All right, Mikhail Beam says, bro, answer my questions today. You didn't answer any yesterday. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mikhail. We had a barn burner yesterday. All right, D, good to see you again. What are your top 3 policy change recommendations for Congress? Unfucking the Supreme Court, making partisan gerrymandering illegal, get money out of politics, tax the wealthy, shit like that. I think that was 4 policies, maybe. Sorry if I cheated there. Mark says, apparently if Trump runs a 3rd term, then nothing matters. No, that's not what that means. If Trump runs for a 3rd term, it means that the Republican Congress and the Republican-controlled Supreme Court are corrupt. That's what that means. But that does not mean that voting doesn't matter. Kevin Colby says, vote to name Trump's ballroom, the Joe Biden Memorial Ballroom, spread the idea. I mean, let's just get rid of the fucking ballroom. It's so stupid. Hopdill says, do you think Donald Trump and Joe Biden do a jerk battle and the person who comes first wins? No. Outlaw says, why do Israel control our USA votes? They don't. Strexico says, stance on Puerto Rican sovereignty. If they want to be sovereign, they should. If they want to be a state, they should. I think what they have now is kind of like the worst possible scenario of being like half a state and half not a state. Zero representation, but their future is being controlled by a country that doesn't really give a shit about them. Droid Man says, I don't believe Trump is serious about running for a 3rd term. I believe that he is serious about staying president until he's dead. And whether that means running for a 3rd term or trying to cancel elections or doing a full-ass coup where he puts like the military outside the White House and tries to keep anybody from kicking him out, like he's gonna try. That's my hot take on that. Young Ghoul says, host, AIPAC is very Israel. They're Israel's voice here. Okay. I'm not arguing that at all. Mark says, what do you think about Israel? I mean, I think that it's probably a nice country, but the current government is psychotic and barbaric. Mikhail Meme says, thoughts on Zohar Mamdani's wife wanting to travel to Lebanon and Syria with security with taxpayers' money. I haven't heard anything about that story, Mikhail Meme. And honestly, I find Zohran and his wife to be people of substance, and so I don't really believe that they are going to be misappropriating any funds so that his wife can barnstorm the globe for funsies. John says, when did Israel start to control the USA? Israel doesn't control the USA. They have influence, the same way that anybody who has a lot of money has a lot of influence over the American government. Outlaw says, why does Netanyahu wash his dirty clothes at the White House every time he visits Trump? Every time you go to visit your kids, you do your laundry there. The Honest HR Director says, when will DSA become its own party? Why would it? It's part of the Democratic Party. Mark says, The Boys is based off of this party. That is 100% accurate. As you believed says, Israel does control the USA for over 60 years. No, it doesn't. Droidman says, also agree Netanyahu is a bad dude that loves war. That is accurate. Guillermo says, my mom just got the death penalty. I'm really sorry to hear that, Guillermo. I am against the death penalty because I want to save your mom's life. Zil says, you think the Iran war will end anytime soon? I honestly don't see how it does. Like, Donald Trump put us into this quagmire. He dug himself into this hole. There's absolutely no way out because his ego will not let him accept defeat or take a deal that he believes is not worthy of the Donald Trump brand. People know too much about how much of a fucking mistake this was and how much of a quagmire it was and how thoroughly we're getting our asses kicked by the Iranians. So, yeah, he doesn't want to do a ground war because that's going to be a disaster for him and for the Republican Party. Maybe he'll do that after the midterms, depending on how much he wins or loses, But going into the midterms, that would be absolutely psychotic. And without doing that, there's no way to accomplish any of the goals that he set out for. El Elion says, do you think the Zionists will try to kill us before they leech us of everything we have? No, I do not believe that is the case. C. Falon, good to see you again. Z. Wayne says, does a potato have more rights than an apple? Pass. Mikhail Meme says, you can check the article on the New York Post. I mean, I'll look at it, but the New York Post is a famously right-wing propaganda rag, so I don't really trust it as far as I can throw it. Jerry Lowell says, are democratic socialists like socialist in the way that the goal is that workers own the means of production? So that's actually communism, I believe, as opposed to socialism, where workers own the means of production. Tank and Nixon, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Definitely did not expect Nixon to be a fan of this live stream, but, I think he appreciates that I give him props for starting the EPA. I think it's more socialist, like we should have universal health care and we should tax the wealthy. All right, Nandor Bandy says Democrats were the slave owners. Look it up. I mean, it is accurate to say that the racists were in the Democratic Party before the 1960s, but then the parties switched their ideologies regarding race, and now the Republican Party is the racist party. So, did you know that happened, Nandor Bandy? Did you know that there was this realignment in regards to civil rights and race relations, where now the Republican Party is where the KKK votes? Are you aware of that, Nandor? Are you spreading this misinformation because you're trying to convince people that the Democratic Party is racist or some shit? Gelado says United States of Israel, so maybe we could not say shit like that. Cool to the 12 Power says, what do you think about walkable cities and investing into them? I'm for it. I love me some walkable cities. Pashtun Goon says, do you know Pashtuns are the real Jews? I don't know what Pashtuns are. Sonia DeBoss says, do you know the bill that was passed, age if marriage? I'm not really sure. Can you rephrase that, Sonia? It doesn't, I don't know what it means there. JC says, they are racist. Who are racist? Okay. Catfish Joe says, why is the Democratic Party taken over by socialists? So the Democratic Party has primaries, and whoever gets the most vote in the primary gets to be the candidate. Democratic Socialists, in the vein of Bernie Sanders and AOC, have been winning a lot of primaries over centrists. But there are also plenty of primaries where the centrists have been winning the progressive candidates as well. So it's not really a takeover so much as people voting for the candidates that they want and the candidates being slightly realigned to be a little bit more progressive. I don't really think that that's a big deal. Georgie says they both work for the 1%. That is incorrect, Georgie. Would you like me to go into more detail than that? I am happy to. Mikhail Meme says, what is workers own the means of production? It's a phrase that comes out of the Communist Manifesto. It basically means that the system that we have now in capitalism is that the workers work for a pittance, and the people that own the company get like 99% of the profits of the labor that the workers do. And the Communist Manifesto purports that it would be better if the actual workers owned the company that they were doing the work for, because then they would have a more equitable share of the work that they were doing. Okay, Georgie says, sure, go into detail. Absolutely. So 75% of all billionaire political donations go to the Republican Party. The Republican Party has rewarded the billionaire class for that by cutting their taxes in every subsequent Republican administration since Reagan. The Democratic Party has raised taxes on the billionaire class in every single Democratic administration since Bill Clinton. So it is clear that the Republican Party is in league with the billionaire class. Additionally, it is the goal of the Republican Party to dismantle the government and get rid of regulations that stop all these billionaires as companies from pouring toxic sludge into our drinking water and into our air. The Democratic Party is against that. The Democratic Party wants to get money out of politics. The Republican Party is trying to put more money into politics. Ergo, it is the Republican Party that is the tool of the 1%, and the Democratic Party is the party of the working class and the 99%. Droidman says, I thought all the billionaires voted and backed Obama. No, that is not true. Read Droidman. You got to read a book called Dark Money by Jane Mayer. Regulars, you have to take a shot. Big Diesel says, what's your stance on abortion? I am pro-choice, but even if you are pro-life, you should still vote for the Democratic Party because Democratic policies actually decrease abortions. Republican policies do not decrease abortions. They just make pregnancy more dangerous for women. And they increase accidental pregnancies. It seems like a weird thing to do to want to increase accidental pregnancy and also make abortion illegal at the same time. It seems kind of fucked up. Why would a party want to do both of those things at the same time? I will let your imagination run wild with that one. Zill says, if Trump loses the midterms, will J.D. Vance be worse than him? So J.D. Vance is not going to become president if Trump loses the midterms. And J.D. Vance, if he wants to be president, Trump would have to either die or he would have to resign or go to jail or have to be impeached, removed from office, shit like that. Droidman says, I really don't think either party is trying to get money out of politics. Both sides get a lot. That is inaccurate, Droidman. The Democratic Party has the politicians that are eschewing super PAC money. The Democratic Party has the politicians that are eschewing APAC money. The Democratic Party is promoting policies to get money out of politics. It is right-wing conservative judges that passed Supreme Court decisions like Citizens United and Cruz v. United States, which made lobbying and bribery easier to get away with. Every single Republican administration has changed the law in order to make bribery more legal, easier to get away with, harder to find, etc. So yeah, I don't buy that at all. I don't buy it at all. When one party has literally all of the evidence against them, even if the Democratic Party hasn't been able to move the needle on this in the past couple of administrations, like that is their goal. That is what they want to do. Yeah, famously, the Democratic Party gets way more money from small dollar donors, ergo the people, than the billionaire class. Funkytron says progressive DSA and Democratic Party are trying to get money out of politics, not centrist moderates. Oh no, there are plenty of centrists that are also trying to get money out of politics. All right, Camille says thoughts on Israeli influence in the States. Israel has a lot of influence because AIPAC is a very well-funded organization, but so is the Heritage Foundation and so is the Federalist Society. So it really is not that Israel controls America, it's that people with a lot of money control America. Modern Tech Life says yes, because it's in their best interest to keep the poor poor. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Jerry Lowe says, do you think humanity will overcome climate change? I do, but I believe that there will be substantial losses. I believe that many people will die and suffer as we make our way towards surviving. All right, Trey Crispy says Democrats get money from the wealthiest people in the country. Yeah, but the Republican Party gets way more money from way more of the wealthiest people, not only in the country but in the world. Like, say what you will about the Democratic Party, at least they're not taking money from fucking Vladimir Putin. Artie says, what president do you agree with the most in terms of their core beliefs and what they did in office? So those are two kind of radically different things, Artie, where you could make an argument that the Biden administration was more progressive than the Obama administration, but I don't believe that Biden was more of a progressive human being than Barack Obama was. I just think that Barack Obama was president 8 years earlier than Joe Biden was, and also, I mean, more than that, depending on which term you're looking at. And also that he was the first black president, ergo he had a lot of eyeballs on him, and he, couldn't afford to even make the tiniest little bit of a mistake. So yeah, I would say that I really liked Barack Obama as a president better than Joe Biden. But I think that if you're looking at accomplishments, especially if you are judging on a curve because Biden only had 4 years where Obama had 8, the Biden administration was fucking killer, man. Like NLRB siding with the unions, Lena Khan breaking up monopolies, Joe Biden walking the picket line, doing a fucking sweet ass secret run into an active war zone in the Ukraine, negotiating paid sick days for the rail workers union, lowering medication costs for everybody, bringing high-tech manufacturing back to the States, filling gaps in veterans' health care, the largest investment in green technology in our nation's history. Like, come on, man. It's just fucking hit after hit after hit. Funkytron says it's an issue on both sides. Yes, but Funkytron, it's more of an issue on the Republican side by a lot. Like, how do you not see that, my guy? Like, I'm outlining it for you here. One of the key cases by which the Republicans have managed to get more money infused into politics is literally called Ted Cruz v. the United States. Like, Ted Cruz is partially responsible for this. He brought the case, and then the Republican justices on the Supreme Court sided with him so that now it is easier to embezzle money from the billionaire class, so in exchange for you doing their bidding when you get elected. Like, how can I make this clearer, my guys? Thank you, Artie. I appreciate you. Tual says, who are you talking about? I'm talking about politics, my guy. Zergon says, would you want America to have more than 2 political parties but stricter laws on donations and PACs? I mean, I don't like the 2-party system, but I don't think that it's responsible for all the ills that people assume that it's responsible for. I would much rather have stricter laws on donations and super PACs. And if we have to have more political parties in order to do that, I would say absolutely. Shork says, what is the bully pulpit? I believe that is how they describe the intense eyeballs and attention that the president gets, meaning that if the president wants to make something an issue, they can deliver a speech and it will get a little bit more interest and attention nationally or even globally, just by virtue of them being the president. Now, some people sort of like misattribute this to saying that the president can do anything that they want because they have the bully pulpit, so they can kind of like direct the country to do what they want by giving speeches. But obviously the power of that is different depending on who is president, who is in Congress, who owns the media, what's going on social media, who's in charge of the Supreme Court, et cetera, et cetera. Miguel Mean says, who won the midterms in 2022? It was, you can make an argument that it was the Democrats, but it really was kind of a split decision where Democrats kept the Senate and actually added seats in the Senate, and the Republicans took control of the House. But the reason why you could say Democrats won in 2022 was because they were expecting it to be like this massive red wave. Like they thought that Democrats were going to get fucking slaughtered, but instead the Republicans made like tiny little inroads in the House, and the Democrats actually added seats in the Senate. So this was seen as a boon and a message from the American people that they were happy with the job that Joe Biden was doing. Funkytron says, my point isn't one side takes more, it's rather anyone who does it are bad, therefore ruining both parties. Yeah, but if everybody does it in the Republican Party and only 50% of the people do it in the Democratic Party, that's better, right? Like the Democratic Party is better there, Funkytron. Like that, I think that makes a difference. I think that makes a huge fucking difference. Like if you're just doing statistics, if you're just gambling on which political party is going to try to get the money out of politics, you have a 50% chance of electing a Democrat who is going to take money out of politics versus a 0% chance that a Republican is going to do that. Does that make sense? It's a heads you win, tails I lose kind of situation, as opposed to actually fucking flipping the coin. Does that make sense, Funkytron? All right, Caden says, are you left-wing or right-wing? I am left-wing. Jerry Lull says, do you think Trump is or is turning fascist? I think he's always been fascist. I think that Donald Trump has wanted to be a fascist dictator ever since he started running for president. I don't think that him being in politics has changed him at all. I think that we're just seeing more of it because there are fewer guardrails, fewer people who are trying to stop him. Bertram Emus says, how high should the tax rate be in your opinion? It should be really high for the wealthy and really low for everybody else. Take Your Heart says, are you left-wing as in liberal or left-wing as in actual left-wing? I mean, it depends on how you define it. I would say I'm actual left-wing, but I don't know. I don't know what your definition is. Artie says, throughout American history, who was the most successful Democratic and Republican president? Oh, I couldn't answer that. I mean, maybe FDR, an argument could be made, but I'm not, like, an expert in history, so I couldn't tell you. Mutter says, Jesse Owens said he was treated better and more equal in Nazi Germany than in America at the time. I think that was a lie. Wasn't that? Like, I heard a whole podcast about Malcolm Gladwell did a whole podcast about that and said that was inaccurate, right? Cosmic Mean Ad says, pardon me, sir, politics aside, you look like my soulmate. Oh, that's so sweet. But I am happily married with a 4-month-old baby now, so unfortunately I am unavailable, so sorry about that. But thank you for the compliment, and thank you to Triska, Muzzking, Lily, and Aaron for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. George Hamilton says, should the military spending increase or decrease? It should decrease, but before it does anything, it should be forced to pass an audit. Like the Pentagon has never passed an audit, and I think that is unconscionable. Canalingua says, I am unavailable. I don't know where that came from. Mutter says, would you agree socialism would be unfree country? It depends on how you define it, Mutter. Like, if you're saying that socialism means that you're not allowed to have your own company because every company is run by the government, then yeah, I would say it's an unfree country. But if you think socialism is just having universal health care, then no, I don't think that would be an unfree country. In fact, I think that'd be a freer country because we would not be shackled to our jobs for fear of anything happening to us health-wise. All right, Triska and Rabab, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And that means that it is finger hearts o'clock, everybody. The best part of the day. Finger hearts o'clock. Bear Triumph says, give me a percentage. No, I refuse to give you a percentage because I don't care. I don't care what the extra percentage is. Here's what I think. I think we should be more for the wealthy right now and less for everybody else. And then when we no longer have people dying on the street of hunger or going into medical debt or not being able to afford rent or their electric bills, if people who work 40 hours a week can't afford to own a home and support a family, then we're not taxing the billionaires enough. All right, Khalil, stop asking that question. I'm not answering it. Bertram says, yes, but do you mean 20% or 65% like Denmark? Again, I don't care. I don't care if it's 90%. I don't care if the marginal tax rate is back to where it was in the 1950s, 90% for people making over a certain thing. All right, Khalil, congratulations. You're out of here. Goodbye, Khalil. All right, Funkytron says, would you hold Democratic Party accountable, for example, Fetterman, Jeffrey, Schumer, Pelosi, Booker? What do you mean by that, though, Funkytron? For me, holding the Democratic Party accountable is a ridiculous thing to say. Like, I will hold Fetterman accountable by voting for other people in the primary. I will hold Jeffries accountable by voting for other people in the primary and encouraging elected Democrats to vote for somebody else to be Speaker of the House. I will primary Schumer. I will primary Pelosi. I will primary Booker. But the Democratic Party didn't install those people. People voted for those people. All right, Kevin says, what's your opinion on the new Hungarian president? No idea. Chicken says, opinion on flock cameras. I'm against them. Mutter says, are the Clintons and establishment Dems equal in the corruption of rhino right-wingers? I don't think so. Okay. Jamie says, do you think Trump should resign as president? Yes, 100% he should resign. He's not going to, but he 100% should. Duncan, great to see you again. Do you think about Candace Owens' debate today? I don't pay attention to Candace Owens. She's a liar and a conspiracy theorist and a con artist, political hack. So yeah, no, I'm not paying attention to that lady whatsoever. MJ Moonlight says, what do you think of Yabaklov party in Russia? I have, which opposed the war in Ukraine. I mean, I'm down with any party in Russia that is opposing the war in Ukraine and potentially standing up to Putin. Kevin says, do you even know who is Peter Magyar? No, I don't. Bikini Club says, do you think Bernie should resign? No. Liam says, why should anyone care what your opinion is on any subject? I know a lot about politics, so there you go. Jerry Lowell says, do you like Marx? I mean, I like workers under the means of production, if that's what you're asking. Right, scrolling up, looking for something to answer. Scrolling up. Banjo Snap says, do you agree that super low wage and tipping is a tax dodge and slavery? Yes, 100%. No worries, Kenalingua. Yeah, I waited tables for 12 years, and I can tell you that the tipping system is fucking barbaric, and I would encourage America to move away from it. And I don't know what mechanism we can use to do that, whether it has to be a law or we just need to start going to restaurants that eschew tipping and instead just pay their employees a living wage. All right. Mikhail Meme says, was Obama actually the first mixed president since his mother was white and his father was black? There were potentially other mixed race presidents in the past that we just don't know about. All right. Hayu Kishki says, if I'm Chinese, does this apply to me? Does what apply to me? You are welcome here, if that is what you mean. But I don't know a ton about Chinese politics, so I would not. It's potential that I would not be able to answer any of your questions. Peace and Love says, what's next for the U.S.? It depends if people do the work to fix it. If people do the work to fix America, then we can have a great country. If people don't, then we could be fucked. Liam says, you watch a lot of MSNBC. That is not true. And that makes you an expert on politics, ? No, that is not why I'm an expert on politics. I just know a lot about it. I've never claimed to be an expert. I just know a lot about politics. Mutter says, if a group of migrants from Sudan moved into a Sudanese-only building, is that true to diversity? I think that diversity is different when you're talking about marginalized communities. Like, if you are moving to a country because there is a horrible war or genocide or terrible atrocities happening, climate disasters happening in your country, and so you are one of the poor, tired, huddled masses yearning to be free, and you decide to stick together with other people who also speak your language and share your culture, just so long as you can stay for a generation so that your children can have an easier time getting a foothold in this new country that they're going to call their home. Like, I have no problem with that. I don't know if there are buildings that are discriminating against people who are not Sudanese, but I can imagine, like, the same thing. That's the reason why every city has a Chinatown, is because a bunch of Chinese people moved into these cities. They all kind of stuck together because it was easier to hang out with each other than try to, become enmeshed in a culture that they were different from and didn't speak the language. Trey Coleman says, they don't stay for a generation. I didn't mean that they were only staying for a generation. I just meant that the next generation usually has an easier time of acclimating. Duncan Crossberry says, would you vote for Count Binface to be American president? No, I don't think so. Depending on who the other option was, maybe. But I'm upset that he lost his election to Nigel Farage. Trey Coleman says, import the third world, become the third world. That's kind of a shitty thing to say, Trey Coleman. Would you like to ask a question or would you like to leave? Those are your two options. Bikini Club says, should term limits be on Congress be enacted? Yes. Roswell says, do you think the Columbia's earthquake was the result of Raytheon-directed energy weapon? I haven't heard anything about this. Seems kind of conspiracy theory-ish to me. Killian O'Brien says, what do you think the biggest problem in American politics is currently? The billionaire class, 100%. Big Bruce says, do you think that the left wing of the Democratic Party hurts the chances of retaking the Senate? No, I do not. Jackie says, my question is, how do you feel when every Democrat lied to your face about Joe Biden's health? Every Democrat did not lie to my face about Joe Biden's health. I have read the book about what happened there, Jackie, and it was a very small group of people that lied to everybody else. So no, it was not every Democrat that lied to my face about Joe Biden. It was Joe Biden. It was Joe Biden's wife. It was Hunter Biden. It was Joe Biden's staff, and that was basically it. Mutter says, great answer to the ethnic enclave question. Thanks. What if white Europeans want to stick together? I mean, if you're moving to Sudan, then yeah, sure. I don't really have a problem with that. Trey Coleman says, do you think we should import millions from the third world? No, but if people from the third world want to come here, then we should let them because immigrants are a net positive. I really don't anticipate you becoming a better member of this live stream, Trey. So feel free to leave as soon as you like. Jackie says, quite literally watch them on TV, but nice try. What are you talking about? Yeah, no, they were lied to, Jackie. They did not know. They were not spending every minute with Joe Biden, Jackie. Trey Coleman says, never just a liberal. So again, just proving me right. Mikhail Meme says, how do you get a girlfriend? That's not a really political question, Mikhail Meme. And I guess, yeah, I don't know. It's a big question. Cinema says, are you left or right leaning? Left leaning. Killian says, people from the third world should be offered a pass citizenship if they have no violent offenses. I agree with that. MJ Moonlight says, do you think mobile phone ban in Swedish schools is the right decision? Yes, 100%. Kuba says, hello, I'm doing well. How are you doing? 2028 says, do you think the USA will have boots on the ground in Iran? I think if that's going to happen, it will happen after the midterms. But I think it's very unlikely that it will happen because that would be a very unpopular thing for Trump to do. Now, there is a converse argument where Trump believes that doing something like that is going to give him more power to do shitty things here in America. Where if we were in a full-scale ground invasion in Iran, then potentially there would be terrorist attacks here in America perpetuated by Iran, and then Trump could do things like declare a national emergency and try to cancel elections, and it would enable ICE to start rounding up people who say things like me on the internet, things that are obviously left-wing. You know, yeah, it's a real recipe for disaster. People should be really pissed off that the Republican Party's let it get this far. Moi says, do you think Africa has a future? Yes, most of us do. Bikini Club says, the billionaire class is the biggest issue. Why? Oh, really good question, Bikini Club. So let me try to put this in perspective here. So the billionaire class has a lot of money and they have a lot of power. And because American politics has been captured by the billionaire class, meaning they are able to insert unlimited amounts of campaign cash into the system to try to convince people to either not vote or vote for their desired politicians, then they are able to enact the kind of change that they want and stop the kind of change that we want. Ergo, everything that's a problem right now is going to be worse because the billionaire class wants it to be worse, and they have the power to elect politicians that will make it worse for them. Now, if we, the people, can take that power away from the billionaire class by taxing them so that they're no longer billionaires, then suddenly we could elect people that actually are interested in solving our problems as opposed to, what the Republican Party does, which is just make everything worse. All right, Call Me Psycho says, in the event of global warming doesn't stop, where will sports teams located in cities move to? North. Cinema says, how do we fix the problems in this country? I'm tired of do-nothing Democrats. P.S. I'm a liberal. I don't believe that there is such a thing as a do-nothing Democrat. I think that people underestimate the way that electoral politics and the message economy has been rigged against the Democratic Party. I think people underestimate how effective the Democratic Party has been, both during the Obama administration and the Biden administration. And, you know, if people want to yell and scream about Democrats not doing enough to stop Trump right now, well, more people should have fucking voted for them because they have zero political power. They do not control the Supreme Court. They do not control Congress. They do not control the mainstream media. They do not control right-wing media. They do not control social media. They do not control fucking anything. And the people had the power to give the Democrats the ability to stop what Trump is doing, and instead they decided to give that power to the Republican Party. All right, Moi says, I have a question for All American. Ask it. MJ says, who do you think will win? I don't know. Zach Foreign says, hot take, centrist is just as bad as MAGA. I disagree. I think being a centrist is kind of useless, but definitely not as bad as MAGA. Sammy Sam says, do you think DSA becoming intertwined with the Democratic Party is a good thing? Yes, the Democratic Party is a big tent. That is our strength. We should have people who are progressive like AOC and people who are centrist like Hakeem Jeffries. Like that is the whole fucking point of the Democratic Party. Fuckytron says there are do-nothing politicians on both sides. Example is Fetterman, who made it clear Israel first. Fetterman is not a do-nothing politician. He is voting with the Republican Party. Like, that's not a do-nothing. I would love it if he was a do-nothing politician. I would love it if he was just not voting instead of voting to confirm all of Trump's fucking psychotic nominees and voting to send more money to Israel. Yeah. I would not say that's an example of a do-nothing politician. Syed says, would you say Trump is a terrorist? I mean, I think you could make an argument for that. I don't know if it's exactly what I would say. Okay. Duncan Crossbury says, do you think there should be a greater effort on the left to combat religious fundamentalism? No, I mean, I think religious fundamentalism kind of exists in that First Amendment territory where you're allowed to have and celebrate any kind of religion that you like, so long as it is not infringing on the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of your fellow citizens. I think that they should be stronger against people that are trying to remove the separation of church and state and getting rid of freedom of religion. All right, Syed already did that one. Cinema says, Fetterman, the former GOP. As far as I know, Fetterman was not former GOP. It seems like he's current or future GOP. Edisage says, could you explain why billionaires want to make things worse? Excellent question, Edisage. Okay, so when power is accumulated in a very small group of people, the thing that they want to try to avoid is everybody kind of like working together to take their ill-gotten gains, to take away their power, to elect representatives that care about them as opposed to the billionaires. And so how do you do that? How do you make it so that the billions and billions of people that exist under your thumb, because you own all the corporations and you have all the capital, etc., how do you make it that they don't have the time, the energy, the education, whatever, to either make their lives better or organize against you? The way that you do is by making their lives difficult and making them desperate. That's the reason why they want abortion bans. They want people to be saddled with children that they cannot afford to have, so they'll be forced to take jobs, any jobs that they can get, regardless if they are low paying or dangerous or demeaning or whatever. If you are a single mom desperately trying to survive and your manager starts sexually harassing you, you're going to be a lot less inclined to do something about that because you fucking need that job. If you are working 80 hours a week and still struggling to get by, then you do not have time to vote, to protest, to organize, to read the news, to find out which politicians are working for you and which politicians are working for the billionaire class. And if people are just fucking getting cancer because of the chemical runoff from their factories, well, that's fucking double good, because now them and all their family are desperately trying to raise money to get you your fucking cancer treatment. You just took like 50 people out of the running for people that could challenge you in your position of power and authority. Meanwhile, you got your fancy water filters and you got your fancy farm-to-table organic foods. You don't have to fucking worry about getting the same kind of cancer that you're giving to all the fucking plebes that are working on your fucking factory farms and shit like that. Does that make sense? Whoever asked that question, let me know. Ooh, Duncan says, why are you being so mean to the poor billionaires? Duncan, you're making me laugh, man. Mikhail Beam says, mobile phone school banned in Sweden. Goddamn, that was hell. I'm glad I'm out of high school. Very bad change. Don't you think that kids not having mobile phones in school is a better thing, Mikhail Meme? Banjo Snap says, is American consumer culture out of control? Yes, 100%. AMM says, I live in the UK and we all, whole country, got a severe alert for wildfires. Oh, sorry to hear that. MM says, what are your thoughts on the current Fergie Chamber situation? Don't know what that is. Bikini Club TV says, if the system is set up to reward corrupt politicians, how will politicians tax billionaires? Excellent question, Bikini Club. So right now we are living in a version of the billionaire dystopia where there are a lot of people who get their news off of social media, which is controlled by the billionaire class, and who don't have time to vote and don't have time to organize and don't have time to strike and things like that. But they do not have full control. They do not have full capture. We know this because ever since the 24 election, Democrats have been fucking crushing in special elections. And more progressive Democrats have been winning more primaries than they ever have before. So we outnumber them. We have way more power than them because we have more bodies than they do. Ergo, we still have the power to elect people that will challenge the billionaire system, that will change the tax code to make it so that billionaires have to pay their fair share, to change labor laws to make it so they cannot exploit poor people and people who are undereducated or undertrained. All right, Bobby Funk says, Nick Fuentes, question mark? Big old thumbs down on that fella. MD says, what happens if the ones in power don't know they are? What happens if all the rhetoric is just rhetoric? I honestly don't know how to answer that question. I don't know what it means. Darag says, what are your thoughts on global warming and the expected temperature rises? Global warming is real. It's going to be a fucking nightmare. I can see it out my window. I don't need scientists to tell me. Like, I'm 47 years old, and I remember it being colder than this. I moved to New York. I lived there for 20 years. There was significantly more snow on the ground every one of my first 5 years than every one of my last 5 years living in New York. So climate change, real fucking real. And it's like such an easy, connect the dots to accomplish. It's like, the oil and gas industry make a lot of money if they pretend that climate change isn't real. They use that money to hire politicians to tell people that climate change isn't real. They hire a bunch of fake scientists to come out with fake studies to say that climate change isn't real. So, ergo, people keep on burning fossil fuels and they keep on making a whole shit ton of money. What's the converse of that? That a bunch of greedy scientists, that's why people go into science, because they're greedy, not because they're trying to unravel the secrets of the universe or whatever. A bunch of scientists got together. They decided to lie about climate change because why? Because because they're heavily invested in solar panels and wind turbines and hydroelectric, because they don't want us breathing pollution from fucking gasoline cars and diesel and shit like that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. All right, MD says, rhetoric, not big bad guys, just people flowing their life through their lane, born into wealth. I don't care. I don't care if you are indoctrinated into believing that you're better or that this is your goal in life. If you have power, you should know better. You have the ability to educate yourself. 2028 said, should flock cameras and data brokers pay royalties to citizens? Yes. I would also be down with dismantling them entirely. MM says, Spain is known for being outspokenly pro-Palestine. Okay. Banjo Snap says, should political donations be capped? Yes, we need stronger campaign finance regulations, without question. Bikini Club says, you think the politicians you elect will vote against people funding their elections? Yes, because the politicians that I am electing are not taking money from the billionaire class or giant corporations. The Democratic Party gets most of their money from small dollar donors. The Democratic Party has the politicians that don't have super PACs. The Democratic Party has the politicians that is eschewing billionaire money and giant corporation money. The Democratic platform is getting money into politics and dismantling the power structure of the billionaire class. So, Bikini Club TV, like, I don't understand how you can be this cynical about that, Bikini Club says, I call BS on the statement, look into it. I have looked into a Bikini Club TV. Like, I don't understand where the disconnect is. So, like, I can show you examples of the Democratic Party standing up to the billionaire class. I can show you examples of the Democratic Party supporting the working class. Every Democratic administration since Clinton has raised taxes on the billionaire class. Like, what are you talking about, my guy? All right, this is Rafi says, do bad politicians exist? Yes, 100% they do. But they're not all of them. And I think it's really important that we recognize that good politicians exist as well. Triska, thank you so much for helping me reach my first Finger Hearts goal of the day. Tri-State says, do you hate billionaires? I mean, what a difficult question to answer. What does it mean to hate billionaires? I think that being a billionaire is immoral. I hate what a lot of billionaires have decided to do with their power. And I think that if you are a billionaire and you decide to use your money to buy a whole bunch of fucking jets and, you know, bribe women into having children for you instead of, I don't know, solving poverty or whatever, then I think you probably suck as a person. The Bikini Club TV says the billionaire class doesn't pay taxes, my guy. No, that is inaccurate. They pay some taxes. And again, the Democratic Party has raised taxes on the richest Americans every Democratic administration since Clinton, and potentially before that. That's my area of expertise starts around Reagan. Bikini Club TV says not income tax. Okay. Bikini Club. Bikini Club, it seems like you are trying to be cynical. Like I am giving you the examples about how you are wrong about this in your pessimism. Are you being paid to spread these pessimistic narratives? Because there are people who are being paid to do this, to go on the internet and be cynical and try to convince other people to be cynical about voting and being involved in politics. So I hope you're getting paid for this. I hope you're one of those bots in India or Russia that's getting paid to spread this bullshit to try to depress people online. You know, I hope that you're not just somebody who's doing this in your free time, because that would be really sad, that there are other people who are getting paid to do what you're doing. MD says, why do you do what you do? So I have for a long time been paying attention to politics, and I have been seeing people spread narratives that I know are inaccurate and also I believe are unproductive. And I think that part of every citizen's responsibility is to be informed about what's going on in politics and to organize and communicate with their fellow citizens. And so I have done door knocking. I have worked for political organizations. I volunteered my time and my money. And I don't know, like I'm just looking for a way to reach more people with this message of actually doing the work and trying to take our country back, and how this country can be better if we just do the work. And so that's why I do this. Oh, right. Mel says, your thoughts on Trump switching planes and leaving those behind? Just another example of him being a selfish coward. Big Bruce says, do you believe in American exceptionalism? No. Big Berto says, what is your opinion about the Johnson administration lying about the Gulf of Tonkin incident? That is real over my head. Bikini Club says, you haven't really answered the real issue. Corruption is inherent to the system. Bikini Club, I have given you examples of so many times that Democratic politicians have eschewed the billionaire class in the past, in the recent past and in the far past. So if corruption is as totalitarian as you're making it out to be, then how was the Affordable Care Act passed? Because the health insurance industry did not want the Affordable Care Act passed. How was it that the Biden administration was able to negotiate paid sick days for the rail workers union? The railroad companies didn't want that to happen. How is it that the Biden administration was able to cap the cost of insulin and asthma inhalers? Because the companies that make those, because Big Pharma didn't want that to happen. How many more examples do I have to give you of the Democratic Party fighting the billionaire class and going against this quote-unquote totalitarian corruption that you're talking about, my guy? All right, Cheryl Ann W. says, hold on a second. Bikini Club says, 4K made insurance companies record profits. Yes, but they did not want it, Bikini Club TV. They did not want it passed. They want to discriminate against people for having pre-existing conditions, Bikini Club TV. Who do you think was fighting the Affordable Care Act? Who do you think was funding all of those attack ads? Bikini Club? Okay, they didn't want it, LOL. I'm really close to booting you, Bikini Club, because you are ignoring everything that I'm telling you. Yeah, I'm just gonna boot you. I don't allow people just to come on my show and rage bait me. Okay, Killian O'Brien says, what do you think the biggest difference is between American politics and European politics? It's got to be money. It's got to be money in politics. Monroe Smith says, do you think your vote ever counted when you pay a representative to take bribes against you? I don't pay a representative to take bribes against me. And yes, everybody's vote counts in America. It's just some people's votes count a little bit more or less than others. Clean Fresh Edit says, thoughts on Luigi Mangione pleading guilty? I mean, they probably had him dead to rights, so this is probably the smartest thing for him and his defense team to do. Big Bruce says, when the Democrats win in November, don't say when, say if. Like, let's not get overly cocky, Big Bruce. Well, if the Democrats win in November, how do they address the divide in the country? I mean, the Democrats have been trying to take down the temperature of the rhetoric for a very long time. And so they're just going to keep on doing it. They're going to keep on, calling out the Republican Party for their shittery, but not trying to say that voters should be fighting and doing civil wars against themselves, unlike the Republican Party. Okay, Monroe Smith says lobbying equals bribery. Cops go to prison, so can representatives. Okay, but lobbying isn't technically illegal, Monroe Smith. So, not really sure what point you're trying to make here. Minir says, do you think DVL will win? I don't know who that is. Creed says, take down the temperature. Give me a break, man. I mean, I could give you lots of examples if you like, Creed. Bill M says, do you think that we should regulate the length of time to run in a primary or general election? I don't know. That seems like it would be really easy legislation to kind of like skirt around. I would love it. I would love it if we didn't have 2-year primary process, but you know, what are you gonna fucking do? Thank you, Duncan Crossbury. Very funny. All right, Monroe Smith says, so that's why your votes never counted. I gotta be honest, guys. I'm really fucking losing my patience with these bots that are being paid to spread cynicism around the internet. So Monroe, unless you ask a question, I'm booting you. Andy Dinger says, is the DNC in financial trouble? So technically, yes. But again, because the Democratic Party candidates get most of their money from small dollar donors, the actual candidates aren't in that much trouble. It is just the DNC, main organizing body that is suffering from a financial deficit right now. Monroe says, do you believe lobbying equals bribery? Yes. Andy Dinger did that one already. Cunnilingus says, need a mod? Oh, I got plenty. Thank you. Eric Johnson says, will we ever have term limits? If we vote for politicians to give us term limits, then we will. Eric Johnson. Alrighty. Thank you, Monroe Smith. All right. God damn. Yeah, this... Yeah, God, I get so fucking annoyed when I hear shit like this. All right. I'm going to start getting out of here. Thank you, everybody, for all your questions. Everybody have a great weekend out there. Do the work, but do the self-care also so that we can all be refreshed and start this journey bright and early again on Monday. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So I will see you guys then. Same bad time, same bad channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.